Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony up on the hill on this foggy Sunday morning, July 6th. We're going to go over the astrology for July 6th to the 12th here in early to mid-July. Two big things happening this week, big themes that will break into two pieces. The first one being Uranus entering Gemini. Okay, that'll be tomorrow, actually late tonight, Pacific time, a little after midnight. And then after that, on Thursday the 10th, that's when we have a full moon in Capricorn, with Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, turning retrograde in Aries a couple days later on Saturday the 12th. So first things first, we'll talk about this Uranus in Gemini. So this is pretty big. Uranus takes about 84 years to go around the zodiac. So it stays in one sign roughly 7 years, plus or minus. It's been in Taurus since 2018. And it will back into Taurus again later this fall for several months before it enters Gemini in the spring, where it'll stay for about 7 years or so till 2033. But anyway, so the last time that Uranus was in Gemini was in the 1940s, roughly. Okay, I think it was like 1941 to 48, 49, something like that. So generally the 1940s. And what we saw during that time was massive advancements in technology, right? Uranus being that planet having to do with technology, Gemini being that sign having to do with communication and movement, etc. And, you know, we saw lots of big advances at that time. In Germany, they were using what would become, you know, a popular item in the 1950s in the US, which is television, for example. There's your Gemini energy and, you know, massive advancements in that. Of course, there are negative ways to use that as far as a propaganda tool, for example, which is what it was used for in Germany, and then what it has been used for in the US and elsewhere since then. Very useful propaganda tool. And anyway, another technology that really advanced at that time was nuclear. Okay, we went from essentially the idea to the tinkering and experimentation to the implementation of nuclear technology, all in a very short period of time in the 1940s. Okay, so that really speaks to that Uranus and Gemini energy. So, you know, what will we see here? We'll get our intro here from now in July through, I think, November with Uranus and Gemini, and then we get to April of 2026 when it enters Gemini for 7 years. You know, what is this going to bring this time? I mean, if that kind of technology can come out of what we were working with then, imagine what can come out of what we have to work with now. Okay, and of course, you can jump right to AI. We already know that's already rapidly advancing, etc. You know, where is that going to go? That's definitely a good question to ask. But then what else is there? Okay, and to introduce Uranus into Gemini, we have Venus, which just entered Gemini in the last couple of days, and it is forming a sextile to Saturn and Neptune in Aries right now on Sunday, and then it is going to perfect a trine to Pluto in Aquarius tomorrow morning, on Monday morning. So right around the same time that Uranus is entering Gemini, Venus will be trining Pluto. And so it's forming these aspects that Uranus is going to form from Gemini to those other outer planets. And again, we have Pluto, which just entered Aquarius back in November of 2024. We have Neptune, which entered Aries in late March of 2025. And now we have Uranus in July entering Gemini. So these are all the three outer planets changing signs. And of course, we have Saturn anchoring it all in by being with Neptune right in between that Uranus and Pluto, which again, Venus is setting that up for us in the next couple days here. So we're in this kind of setup process where Venus is introducing a landscape to Uranus right before it enters Gemini and forms those aspects that will be in and out again through next spring. So from this summer through next spring, we're going to see those outer planets all talking to each other. We haven't had that in a long time. Okay, we have to go back to like around that, like pretty much around that time, just after World War II or so. That was when we actually had Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all in some kind of aspects to each other at the same time. Okay, and so it just represents certain leaps in societal evolution in a lot of ways. And so that's where we're in now. Big changes on the horizon, big changes already unfolding, obviously. But yeah, so we're introducing ourselves to this Uranus and Gemini era, essentially. Okay, so expect more explosions in technology, or technologies of explosion, right? The other way to look at that. But also communication advancements. You know, how much more advanced can it get at this point, right? it's kind of hard to even fathom, but that's what we got to be thinking along those lines is, could we have advancements in nonverbal communication, right? Who knows? Maybe we start talking to each other without having to speak. I don't know. Maybe we're just a tweak away from figuring out how to do that on a technical ground level here in the third dimension. Who knows? But it'll be exciting to see how that unfolds, what develops, etc. The second piece that happens this week is that full moon in Capricorn. Like I said before, that's on Thursday the 10th. That full moon is going to square Chiron in Aries, and it's going to form a trine to Mars and the moon's south node in Virgo, while forming a sextile to the north node in Pisces. Okay, so this full moon, and then again, Saturn, the ruler of this full moon, because it's the ruler of Capricorn, will turn retrograde in Aries on Saturday the 12th. And so we already have Neptune turned retrograde in Aries. That was just from a couple days ago on Friday. And now Saturn's going to follow suit 8 days later. And so both Saturn and Neptune have introduced us to that Aries energy, to this sense of self-responsibility, this transition of power from external to internal or sovereign generation of empowerment, authority, etc. Okay, so we're getting introduced to it here. It's going to be a bigger theme next year. The introduction, though, is here. Now that's going into retrograde. So now we're going back to figure out what needs to be finished. As Saturn and Neptune go back into Pisces, we're finishing up certain chapters in our lives so we can move on in 2026. And so this full moon kind of speaks to that idea of self-responsibility in a way as well. And that square to Chiron and Aries really kind of brings that up, where it's almost like we're at the end of our rope with the Chiron and Aries lesson, which goes back to about 2018. It's about the same time that Uranus entered Taurus. We had Chiron entering Aries, and that theme of having to dig in and really kind of forgive ourselves on certain levels and have more faith in ourselves and see ourselves as capable. Okay, and so this full moon is kind of like that final straw that says, whatever I got to do, it's time to move forward. Okay, and so we can use that trine to Mars and the south node in Virgo as, thinking of it like a toolkit. Mars and Virgo is like those little things we do, the little tools we have that are useful for different things. It's almost like strapping that toolkit on our backs and then following that north node in Pisces and saying, I'm not sure where life is taking me next, but I am just done with this lesson of having to show that I'm capable. Okay, so it's just a lot of wounding, and of course the process of that is to heal through those wounds when we face them. Okay, but we're pretty much done with that. We don't want to deal with that anymore. That's kind of what this full moon is speaking to, is this idea of being at the end of that road. Like, all right, cool, I learned what I need to learn. I'll take what I can, whatever tools are useful. But honestly, I'm ready to open up to the unknown and to maybe something that is going to lead me forward where I can't predict the ending. Okay, because Virgo wants everything predictable, all the details laid out. Pisces is like, hey, the details will figure themselves out. 1 foot down, that's the next thing I had to worry about is the next foot. That's it. Okay, so that's that full moon, and because Saturn, the ruler of that full moon, is turning retrograde again, it is this idea that we've pushed the lesson as far as it can go. Now it's time to go back, release what needs to be finished, and that way next year, 2026, especially starting in the spring, it's like we're ready to reload on a personal level to fit with the societal evolution that's happening here, all of which we're being introduced to right now. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Other than that, we'll see you next week. If you want to follow more semi-daily posts, do follow me on Facebook or here on Instagram. And if you want to get a little more glimpse at this societal evolution, dealing with that Neptune-Saturn conjunction in Aries, I have a webinar on that. You can find that on my YouTube. That's Christopher Taylor - Sovereign Harmony. Do subscribe, share, lots of great info there. And if you are interested in any kind of personal reading, I'm doing a special. If you go to my Facebook, you'll see in the comments I post that special with my Facebook updates. I'll probably do one on Tuesday morning, and you can get the details on that. Contact me, we can set that up. But otherwise, hopefully it's going to clear up here. Usually does within a couple hours. But enjoy your week, enjoy your summer, and we're getting ready for next year. We'll see you.